Welcome to Good Burger Reviews. My name is John and I'm here to review a brand new 2025 movie, and that movie is Director's Cut.
What's your name, guy?
They call me Mr. Director.
There's a director and he wants to shoot us for free.
Maybe we should go back upstairs. Did you see that?
You guys are so funny and also good looking.
This movie is directed by Don Capria. It is released to streaming in December of 2025. It is starring Louis Lombardi, Lucy Hart, and Danielle Koch. The basic premise is, excited to shoot their first music video, a punk rock band named Suicide Disease ventures into the woods of PA, never to return. Okay, so just to clarify that, the movie title is called Director's Cut. It's not a director's cut of any other movie. Also, the premise is very basic, but we're going to get into this streamer, which is streaming on Shudder, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, some spoilers, and get into the rating. But before I get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, tap that notification bell, all that jazz. Still a growing station, approaching my year anniversary, and would love to hit 250 subscribers as we cross into next year. And sad to say that Halloween season for me has finally ended. Yes, and I have been celebrating Halloween all the way for the whole 90 days. I had my Summerween, which was in the tail end of August into September, then regular Halloween season, 13 days of Halloween, followed by the aftermath of Halloween, and then the Nightmare Before Christmas, which is the last 2 weeks in November, which brings us to Christmas time. So now we are in the Christmas season, the last month of the year. There's only a few movies left to watch before we wrap everything up. But without any further ado, let's get into this streamer, Director's Cut.
Why'd you guys stop playing shows?
None of us want to talk about that.
I'm sorry. Did I say something I shouldn't have?
So the positives. I'd say the biggest positive in this movie for me is definitely Louis Lombardi. Now, he plays the director. He's very mysterious. He's kind of comical. And he's this blend of so many characters in a way. He kind of is like the blend of Pamela Voorhees meets Ben Willis meets Uncle Buck and Kathy Bates from Misery. And yes, that is a very strange blend. Now I've been talking about movie blends, and this movie's kind of different. I don't really see too much of a blend here for movies, but this character specifically gives me a blend. And the one thing I really liked about him is he was kind of a different character. He was very interesting. He's very
The energy in the room.
original as compared to what we see in most antagonists or serial killers or whatever you want to call them in this movie. I just felt like Louis Lombardi plays a very comical but yet scary but yet friendly character. In some scenes he felt like that long lost uncle that you meet at the family reunion. And other scenes he's like that demanding, terrifying director that you would normally bump into like in Hollywood. You know, kind of like the character we saw in Maxine, the director in that movie. So he basically is attracting this young punk rock band he wants to film them in a music video. They're a young struggling band and they want to get popular. They want to make it to the next level of their careers. They want to break out into fame and all that. And they're willing to take a chance with this guy to make a music video. But the catch is they have to drive from Long Island all the way to the deep woods of Pennsylvania.
Cool. So, Mr. Director, what's next?
I think we're gonna record a music video. There's a director and he wants to shoot us for free.
Seems too good to be true, but could be the break we need.
There'll be no drama. Let's not ruin your big moment.
Now, another thing that I will put in the positives is I like the punk rock band the music more than the characters, and I'll get into the characters, but I really was going with the music. It was giving me like an early 2000s, late 1990s type of punk rock band. Even though this is set in present day because there's cell phones and all that in this. There was some decent songs the song that they're recording for this video is pretty decent. It's called War. And then there's this remake that gets played that's by the same band. Whisper to a Scream, Birds to Fly. And I will say, along with the music selections, like the band's music and the other music that's played in this movie, also the score goes along well with the scenes, especially when there's heightened up scenes. Now, I would put this movie as in the category of more of a slower burn. I wouldn't put it like artsy or anything like that. It is a very basic feel, the typical horror and traditional spooks, bumps in the nights types of vibe to it. But I will say it takes a moment for the spooks, the jumps, or the terror that's in this movie to come out.
What's going on?
We're leaving. Let's go.
You did the right thing. No one wants to die at the hand of some lunatic in the middle of nowhere.
So that's going to bring me to the mixed. So in the mix, I would say are the rest of the characters, which is the members of the band, including their girlfriends who go along on this trip. And the reason why I'm mixed about them is that in some parts, they were kind of getting on my nerves. They weren't getting along. They're arguing throughout the whole thing. They're kind of young and selfish and being immature about how they're going about everything. But then in other moments, especially in the tail end, they seem to turn it around a little bit more. And I start liking the characters. Now, there are 4 members of the band. 3 of them are guys. 1 of them's a girl. They also bring their manager. And 2 of the guys bring their girlfriends. So that adds up to, do the math, it is like 8 people going. Plus you have the director who's invited them, who they don't know. And the director has an assistant. Now the assistant is another one that I'm mixed on. The assistant, so the director makes a very specific comment saying, when he introduces everyone and then introduces his partner there and says that his pronoun is, or their pronoun is she, her. So there's this whole thing about pronouns in there because the assistant character is probably, I guess, a trans from a man to a woman. And I wasn't mixed because of the trans. I was fine with that. I just thought the character itself was a little strange, just because they don't do a lot of talking. They kind of just they're just basically like the director's assistant, or basically do whatever the director wants. Also, since the director is handicapped, or we think is handicapped, he's in a wheelchair the whole time, and she can do walking and be more agile throughout this movie. Now, I did spill a little bit of a mild spoiler there where I said that, he was in a wheelchair most of the time. So he does show up in a wheelchair, but at the way end, he gets up and walks. But he doesn't ever run. I mean, he is fairly older, and he does like this Michael Myers walk. And I felt kind of mixed about it because he's kind of like, he doesn't have the Michael Myers vibe. So why he was walking like Michael Myers, to me, was just left me mixed. I felt like the character overall was pretty neat. He was in the same outfit the whole time. He kind of was wearing this bright yellow shirt, which reminded me of a Charlie Brown shirt. He looked like Charlie Brown aged all the way up, except for he was wearing these glasses, like Cobra glasses, the whole time as well. So that will bring me to the negatives, and I'll just throw up a spoiler warning because, as always for me and my channel, it seems like the negatives bring the spoilers. And in this one, the negatives come a lot in the tail end of the movie. So spoilers. So the first thing that I would say is a negative. There was this setup in the beginning of the movie where when this band is on its way to New York, and in this like traffic incident, like a road rage incident with this pickup truck in these deep backwoods roads of Pennsylvania. And they get into this like traffic thing with them, and then the truck takes off, and then you see the truck go to this other house, and they all get out, and they're like, oh, they might be drug dealers or whatever. It really sets them up to be like, you think that they're going to come back and be part of whatever the antagonist is in this movie, but then they never turn up again. Like, it just was a thing at the beginning of the movie, and it never goes anywhere with it. So I was kind of disappointed, because the way it was set up, you thought, all right, they might be involved in what's going on. Another thing that was a negative for me was the end altogether. So, like, this director, he's filming this video, and instantly it gets, like, very... Like, you know that, okay, so they all left from New York to Pennsylvania. And I'm originally from New York, and now I live in Pennsylvania. So I kind of am familiar with both areas, including accents. And this guy, Louis Lombardi, has a very strong New York accent. So my first thought was, like, these young kids didn't question, like, they went all the way out to Pennsylvania, and why? And the guy is from New York. Now, there's this backstory that's going on, and this is where I thought they have a friend, Casey, that apparently Casey died a couple of years back. And they're all bickering about Casey's death here and there throughout the movie, but then you start to realize that Casey's connected to everything that's going on in this movie. So if you remember at the beginning, I said that our main antagonist, the director guy, is like a Ben Willis meets Pamela Voorhees. Well, those are the killers from I Know What You Did Last Summer and Friday the 13th. Both were killers who were revenging their children. And this had that vibe, especially like the I Know What You Did Last Summer vibe with Ben Willis. Because it turns out, and they're kind of ambiguous about it, and you just kind of have to put two and two together. But in my best guess, the director is the father of this dead girl, Casey. And he believes that the band, mainly the lead singer, is behind the death of his little girl. So he is filming them during this, in this like secluded mansion, and he's telling them to do all these things, and in the process, and they're all going to film separately, and each time he takes one to film them their part, he kills them, and the assistant helps. These characters were like I said, how I was mixed on the characters, because like it seemed like they were cool, and then it seemed like they were kind of a mess. Well, there's this one part where they say they want to play a game with the director, and they called it Spoons or Sticks or something. And it's basically like this game where she's holding a drumstick in her mouth and says, oh, I'm going to hit you up. The whole point of the game is put the drumstick in your mouth and then hit the other person on the head. Except for, so when he puts a drumstick in his mouth and then hits her on the head, it doesn't really hurt, because how much damage can you really do with a drumstick in your mouth? Well, when it switches over to her, she goes to hit him on the head, but one of the other band members standing behind him, and he doesn't see it right away, and whaps him on the head. So like when he gets hit, he's not expecting to be as hard as it felt. And he's like, oh, ow, that hurt. And it's like, they kind of go through this routine a few times. And I really thought it was going to build up to the fact that he was going to catch them in the act of like, I know that someone else is behind me, and I'm going to quick grab the drumstick, and it's going to turn ugly right then and there. But it doesn't. It does get revealed later that that's what they were doing, and then that's when all the killings start happening. But that's not really why he's killing them. I mean, maybe that just adds to the fuel to the fire, but he's killing them because of Casey. Now, some of the kills were okay. Some of the kills were pretty intense. I'm not going to get into the details of the kills, because I feel like the movie overall is worth a watch. Overall, even though I did like the main antagonist, you know, the ending still was kind of messed up. So full spoilers on the end here. So he's killing all the band members, and it starts to unravel a little bit. And I felt like, for one, these band members never were fully suspicious of this going down. Like, they didn't know this guy. They met him on the internet. The place is very secluded. Right out the gate, he's battling with people for the minute he gets there. The whole thing with the drumstick as well. And they never get suspicious of things that just seemed to miss while they were there. And I thought, especially as each character gets brought into the room and gets killed off, the other characters don't realize, like, what's going on? Where's the other band member? How come the first guy that went in didn't come out? Like, and it just, there's just a little continuity with this, or just like, how come they're not suspicious? And the final thing that I'll put in a negative, it was like, it seemed like the band members were more of the head characters of this, and then the girlfriend, especially like the one guy's girlfriend, she just had such a small role. And it turns out, like, the premise when you read the premise off of IMDb, it says, you know, the band ventures off to the woods of Pennsylvania and never to return. Well, the one character does escape, but it's very ambiguous about what really happens. They show her escaping out of the room where everyone was killed. They show her jumping off the second-story ledge, landing in some rocks. You think she's dead. The Louis Lombardo looks out the window, looks like, I guess he thinks she's dead, but it turns out she's not dead, and she escapes off, and they show her in the last scene walking up to this church. Well, I felt like this church they had crossed this church prior to the road rage incident, so I felt like it had to at least be a couple miles away from wherever this mansion was, and I thought, how did she walk after, like, she crashed into rocks? You know, it just was a weak ending. So, and they just show him looking down at her, and her, like, I guess whatever, how long it took her to go to this church, the end. It doesn't really say what happens to her. Everyone else is dead. It doesn't really say what happens to him and his little side partner. It's just a very quick, you know, ambiguous ending. But at the end of the day, overall, it did have some nice intrigue and build up to everything that was going on. And I felt like the majority of the movie was decent. And like I said this in other reviews recently, like, sometimes horror movies have trouble sticking the landing. So the ending isn't that great, but overall the movie's decent. So we're going to get down to business on this one. And I'm going to blend all my mixed emotions on this one and give director's cut a basic burger. Now, don't forget to stay scared of those wild, wacky directors who will film you for free to help you get famous, but slice and dice you in the process.
I love the energy in the room.